Subject, package delivery, tracking ID 9274810 from norreply@quicksendtrack.com, date Thursday 1:03 p.m. Your package has been delivered and left at your front door. That's how it started. Not ominous, not weird, just a regular delivery notification, like the hundreds I've gotten before. The email didn't even raise an eyebrow at first. I was expecting something. A coffee grinder I'd impulse bought at 1 a.m. after a TikTok convinced me I couldn't live another week without fresh beans. But when I opened the front door, there was nothing there. I leaned out, glanced left and right, even checked the steps in case the box had been nudged by wind or someone walking by. Nothing. No neighbors walking their dogs, no porch pirates, not even a flyer. Weird, I thought, but not too weird. Maybe the driver had marked it as delivered a little early. I went back inside and forgot about it. Around 3:45 p.m., I got a knock at the door. This time, it wasn't a delivery driver, but a guy in a polo shirt with a clipboard and a lanyard. "Package for you," he said, handing me a sealed box. It wasn't in branded packaging, just plain brown cardboard, no label, no markings. The only thing on the surface was my full name, first, middle, and last, written in what looked like ballpoint pen. "Wait," I said. "Are you with Quicksend?" He smiled, then didn't answer, just turned and walked down my driveway, clipboard swinging at his side. I opened the box in the kitchen. Inside was a box of coffee filters. No grinder, no receipt, just the filters and a small folded note tucked between them. "Thought you might need these first." I actually laughed out loud. Okay, weird marketing tactic. Maybe they split the order. Whatever. I tossed the filters on the counter and went to check the order status online, but when I logged into the site, the order history was blank. Nothing. No pending order, no past purchases, no account info, except my name and email. That's when I started to feel off. I checked my bank transactions, no charge, no $58.76 missing. Just like I'd never bought it. By evening, I'd mostly shrugged it off. Maybe I dreamed the purchase or closed the window before completing it. I do that sometimes. Hover, click, abandon. At 8:17 p.m., I heard the doorbell. Another box, same handwriting, same ballpoint pen. Again, no return address, no label, lighter than the last one. Inside, a small burlap bag filled with whole coffee beans, and another note, fresh as promised. I didn't smile this time. I didn't laugh. I stared at the beans, then went to lock the door. I even pulled the curtain over the window, something I almost never do. I live on a quiet street. It's always felt safe. I brewed tea instead, just to be petty. I went to bed late, around 1 a.m. The wind had picked up and my upstairs hallway kept creaking in that slow, groaning way old houses do when the temperature drops. But around 2:40 a.m. I heard something new. Not creaking. Shuffling. Soft. Careful inside. I sat up, listened. Heart in my throat, the sound came from the kitchen. Something light being slid across a surface, maybe a box. Maybe filters. I crept to my door, held my breath, and pressed my ear to the frame. Nothing now, just the refrigerator humming. I tiptoed downstairs, holding my phone like a weapon, flashlight on. The kitchen was empty, except for one thing, the grinder. Sitting on the counter, plugged in, clean, no box, no packaging, no receipt, just there, as if it had always been. I turned slowly, expecting something, someone, but I was alone. I didn't sleep. Next morning, I called Quicksend, gave them the tracking number from the original email. The rep on the line said it wasn't valid, said the number didn't match their format at all. But I got an email. "No, ma'am," she cut in. "We've never used that ID style, and we don't have your name in our system." I hung up. That afternoon, a third box arrived. This one wasn't at the door. It was inside my living room. Same handwriting, same pen. Inside, a white ceramic mug, no logo, no branding, just plain. And the note, one more piece to feel at home. I sat down, mug in one hand, note in the other. And then I noticed something I hadn't before, the handwriting. Every note, every address, it matched mine. Not just close, exact, down to the flick in the lowercase y, the tiny curl on the S. It was mine. I pulled out a notepad, wrote the phrase, "Thought you might need these first," compared it side by side with the first note. Identical. I hadn't written them, not consciously, but they were mine. And that scared me more than anything else. I checked my Ring cam. Footage glitched during each delivery window. 2 seconds of static, then resumed with a box already in view. I told myself it was a prank. A weird one. Maybe a friend messing with me. I texted a few. Nobody admitted to it. That night, I stayed up, left every light on. Nothing happened until the next morning. When I opened my front door, I froze because there, perfectly centered on the welcome mat, was a full coffee station. Stand, grinder, carafe, filters, beans, mugs, everything. All arranged like a showroom display. No note this time. Except, on the wall inside my house, just behind the door, written in pen, "You're ready now." The handwriting wasn't mine this time, it was my mother's. I recognized it instantly. The looping cursive she used on birthday cards, the handwriting I hadn't seen since her funeral 8 years ago. I stumbled back, slammed the door shut. I didn't open it again for hours. When I finally did, everything outside was gone. No stand, no coffee station, just the empty mat. I wanted to believe I hallucinated it, that maybe I'd been sleepwalking, writing notes to myself, creating stories. But that didn't explain the mug, the grinder, the beans, the handwriting, the delivery guy with the clipboard. I took the grinder out to the garbage, tossed the filters, the mug, all of it. And I thought I was done. But just now, tonight, as I'm writing this, I made tea, boiled water, dropped in a bag, let it steep. I didn't look in the cabinet. I know I didn't. But when I picked up the mug, it wasn't the one I grabbed. It was the plain white one. And underneath it, printed around the base in tiny red letters I swear weren't there before. "Welcome back. We've missed you." The delivery that wasn't meant for me. My name is Mark. This happened to me a few years ago when I was living alone in a small apartment. I was used to quiet nights, sometimes even too quiet, but nothing ever really unsettled me until that night. It started with a delivery. I was expecting a package, a new set of headphones I'd ordered for $75. The delivery window was between 7 and 9 p.m., and I was home waiting. Around 8:30, the doorbell rang. I looked through the peephole and saw a delivery guy holding a small box. I opened the door, thanked him, and signed the electronic pad. He handed me the box, gave a quick nod, and left. I took the package inside and set it down on the kitchen counter. When I opened it, my headphones were there, exactly as expected. I plugged them in to test, but the sound was weird. Like there was static, but also something else, almost like a faint whisper under the music. I shrugged and decided to call customer service the next day. I put the headphones down and went about my evening. The weather was calm, the streetlights outside flickered gently through my window, and I started watching a movie. About an hour later, the doorbell rang again. I wasn't expecting anything else. Confused, I looked through the peephole. Nobody was there. I stepped outside, but the hallway was empty. Shrugging it off as maybe someone playing a prank, I locked the door and went back inside. Then my phone buzzed. It was a text from an unknown number. "Did you like the headphones?" I froze. Who was this? How did they get my number? I didn't reply. A minute later, another message arrived. "You shouldn't have opened the package." My heart started pounding. I looked around the apartment like something was watching me. I considered calling the police, but what would I say? Someone sent me a creepy text about headphones? I decided to block the number. Then I heard a soft tapping noise coming from my bedroom window. It sounded like nails lightly knocking against the glass. I walked over, peered out. The street was empty. I closed the curtains and locked the window. Trying to calm down, I told myself it was just some prank or coincidence. The texts kept coming though, every 15 or 20 minutes. "You can't ignore me. They know what you did. It's watching." My phone started ringing, but when I answered, no one was on the other end. Just silence. That night, I barely slept. Every little noise made me jumpy. The next morning, I called the headphone company. They confirmed the tracking number was valid, and the package was delivered to my address by one of their drivers. But they also said something strange, that the package had been returned once before, unopened, due to a delivery error. Suddenly, I wondered if maybe someone else was supposed to get the package. But why send creepy texts? That evening, I found a note slipped under my door. It was handwritten on a crumpled piece of paper. It said, "You don't belong here. Return what's not yours." My hands trembled as I read it. I looked out my peephole again. Downstairs, in the dim light, I thought I saw a shadowy figure waiting near the stairs. I didn't open the door. I called a friend and asked if they could stay over. They agreed. That night, with someone else in the apartment, I felt a little safer. But when we both went to bed, my phone buzzed one last time. You can't hide. I checked the window locks, double-checked the doors, and left the lights on. Around 3 a.m., I woke to a loud bang downstairs. It sounded like something heavy hitting the floor. My friend was awake too, and we quietly crept down the hallway. In the living room, the package was torn open, the box ripped apart. The headphones were gone. My heart slammed in my chest. We called the police. They came, searched the place, but found no sign of forced entry. The cameras in the hallways didn't show anyone entering or leaving. When they left, I sat on the couch trying to piece together what was happening. The next morning, I checked my phone and saw one last text, this time from a different number. Thank you for returning it. I stared at the screen. What was going on? I decided to throw the headphones away. If they were cursed or something worse, I didn't want to risk it. Days went by without incident. I almost convinced myself it was a prank by some tech geek. Then, one evening, I got a call from a man. Deep voice, no name. He said simply, "You received something you weren't meant to have." I asked who he was. No answer. He hung up. That night, as I lay in bed, I realized I'd never checked the small package for anything else. I grabbed the torn box from the trash and dug through the wrapping. Inside, beneath the foam padding, was a small black USB drive. I plugged it into my laptop. The screen went black for a moment, then a video file appeared. I clicked it. On the video was a room, dark, barely lit. A figure sat in a chair, hands tied behind their back, head hanging. The camera angle shifted slowly, showing part of the face. It was a man, but I couldn't recognize him. Then the video switched. The figure stood up. The man's mouth moved, but there was no sound. On the screen, words appeared, typed out as if someone was messaging me through the video. "You have what belongs to me. Return or suffer." Suddenly, the screen went static. My blood ran cold. I unplugged the USB and threw it across the room. I locked all the doors and windows again. I didn't sleep for 2 nights. On the 3rd morning, my landlord called. There had been a complaint from the neighbors about strange noises coming from my apartment. Shouting, banging. I told the landlord I'd been alone and nothing unusual happened. Later that day, I got a letter in the mail. No return address. Inside was a single page typed, "You were never meant to receive this. The package was a warning, one you ignored. Now we're coming for you." I reported everything to the police, but they said there was little they could do without more evidence. Then 1 week later, my electricity cut out at midnight. My phone was dead. I heard footsteps outside my door. I held my breath. The doorknob turned. Nothing happened. After a few seconds, the footsteps disappeared. When the power came back, I found the USB drive gone and a new package on my doorstep. No note this time, only a chilling silence. Since then, I moved out. I still don't know who sent the package or why they targeted me. And sometimes when my phone rings at night, I don't answer because I'm afraid of what might be waiting on the other end. The last delivery. My name is Lisa. I work part-time at a local bookstore, and one chilly Friday evening, I found myself alone in my apartment while my roommates were out of town. It wasn't unusual for me to be by myself, but something about that night felt different. Uneasy, almost like I was being watched. I didn't think much of it at first, just chalked it up to the late autumn darkness settling in earlier than usual. I had planned a quiet night, order some takeout, read a new novel, and maybe catch up on some work emails. Around 7 p.m., I got a notification from the food delivery app. My order was on its way. I double-checked the address and peered out the window. The street was nearly empty, just a few cars passing by every now and then. The apartment complex wasn't very big, so I figured the delivery wouldn't take long. 20 minutes passed, and I hadn't heard the usual buzz of the delivery guy pressing the doorbell. I texted the driver, "Hey, I'm downstairs, just in case." No reply. I waited a few more minutes before grabbing my phone to call him. The phone rang a few times before a quiet voice answered, "I'm outside your building." I hurried to the door and opened it, but no one was there. The hallway was empty, except for the faint hum of the building's heating system. Confused, I stepped outside and looked around. The only thing in sight was an empty delivery bike, leaning against a nearby wall. No sign of the driver. Shrugging, I walked back inside and called the restaurant. They confirmed the order was picked up and supposedly delivered. I told them I hadn't received anything, and they promised to resend it, which was kind of them. I went back to the couch, trying to shake off the weird feeling creeping up my spine. About 20 minutes later, the doorbell rang again. Heart pounding, I peeked through the peephole. A man in a delivery uniform stood there, holding a brown paper bag. Relief washed over me. I buzzed him in and opened the door. He handed over the bag with a tight smile and said, "Sorry for the wait." His eyes seemed distant, unfocused. "Thanks," I said, taking the bag and closing the door quickly. I checked the food. Everything looked fine, but I couldn't ignore that uneasy feeling still gnawing at me. That night, I heard noises from the hallway, soft footsteps pacing back and forth like someone was lingering outside my door. I told myself it was just the building settling or another tenant coming home late. Still, I double-locked the door and closed all the curtains. Around midnight, I was getting ready for bed when the lights flickered. I sighed, knowing the building had occasional electrical issues. Suddenly, my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Did you like the food?" My fingers trembled as I typed back, "Who is this?" No reply. I checked the door again. It was locked tight. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that someone was watching me. I debated calling the police, but didn't want to make a fuss over a strange text. Maybe it was a prank. I locked myself in my bedroom, turning off all the lights, trying to calm my racing thoughts. Minutes later, another text came through. "You forgot this." Attached was a photo of my front door handle, clear as day, taken from just outside. I froze. How was this possible? I lived alone and the building's main entrance was locked. Only residents and their guests had access. I stared at the door, my breath shallow. Then, softly, I heard a knock. 3 taps, deliberate and slow. I didn't move. The knocking continued, louder now, more urgent. My phone buzzed again. "Open up." Panic took hold. I dialed 911, whispering my address and the situation to the dispatcher. The knocking stopped immediately. I waited, every muscle tense. After what felt like an eternity, the dispatcher told me officers were on their way. Moments later, I heard footsteps running down the hallway, voices calling out. I opened the door to see 2 officers scanning the area. I explained everything, texts, knocking, the missing delivery. They checked the building cameras and told me someone had been lurking in the hallway earlier but left before they arrived. That night, I barely slept, constantly glancing at the door. Days passed and things returned to normal, or so I thought. One evening, my phone buzzed again. Same unknown number. I didn't open the message at first. Finally, curiosity got the better of me. The text read, "Thanks for letting me in." Cold dread washed over me. I rushed to check every lock, every window. Everything was untouched. But then I noticed something chilling on my kitchen counter. A small slip of paper I hadn't seen before. Written on it was a single word, "Inside." I called the police again. They searched the apartment thoroughly but found nothing. The officers reassured me it was probably a prank from someone who managed to get in briefly but left no trace. I stayed at a friend's place that night. When I returned the next day, the apartment was eerily quiet. I turned on the lights, walked around, checking every room. Then I saw it. A message scratched into the inside of my bedroom closet door. "You're never really alone." I sat down, heart pounding, realizing that whoever had been watching me had found a way inside. It wasn't until the next week that I found out the truth. A neighbor approached me cautiously and said they'd noticed a man in a delivery uniform wandering the building for weeks, sometimes disappearing into stairwells and reappearing unexpectedly. They called the police, but the man was always gone before officers arrived. The final twist? The building's security camera footage from months ago showed a man posing as a delivery worker breaking into apartments, but he was never caught. That evening, I found another note slipped under my door. This time, it was accompanied by a set of keys. A note simply read, "You're lucky I'm not here." I never ordered food again, and I never let anyone inside.